Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to this webinar that I'm going to take that is a new technology that is Deno. So before I start on that, let me quickly introduce myself. So my name is Nirav Prajapati. I am from PHP Laravel team and I have been working with Indianic for like last 2.5 years almost. And yeah, I'm under Viral Parik's cluster and most of the time I have experience in the PHP side and right now I'm working as a senior software engineer at Indianic and I have total of around 11.5 years of experience in this field, right? So that's all about me, a short introduction. So let's quickly start with our today's webinar topic, that is Deno, right? So let me just share my screen and just confirm anyone that you will be able to see my screen.
It's visible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I hope my voice is also very much clear to everyone. So should I start?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah. So today, as you, everybody knows about this word like Deno, right? And many of might have research or I'm expecting that someone has also typed in Google that what is Dino and all that. So let's start with Dino. So we will like we'll see the very high point of view, like mainly 3 points we are going to cover, like Dino foundation, as you can see on my screen. The second point is Dino versus Node and Deno modules and tooling, right? So the very first question you might be asking that what is Deno or why Deno? So it's a JavaScript runtime which we are going to talk about, and but what does it really mean? Why should we even excited about Deno and why should we even care? Like, well, if we go to the Deno website like this, right? This is the Deno main website, and it says like a secure runtime for JavaScript and TypeScript. Further, if we read like Deno is a simple, modern, and secure runtime for JavaScript and TypeScript that uses V8 and built-in Rust. So you can see that these are all the buzzwords that we are going to really deep dive into these topics and actually understands the internals of Deno, what it is and what it does, why is it so different from Node, and why should we even keep an eye on it, right? Because this is really a very early stage of Deno, so uh, we have to keep an eye on it and we'll see that how it go in future, right? So Deno is a JavaScript runtime, like just like Node is. So why do we need another JavaScript runtime? A place where we can write a JavaScript code. So that's actually a good question, right? Because why do we need Deno? We have so many programming languages like PHP, C++, Python, .NET, and many others. And we also have this Node.js. So all of these are ways of to write the programs. So we have language to communicate with the computer, but at the end of the day, all of do the same thing, right? We write some program, provide instruction to the computers, and it executes. So why do we need a new thing? Well, we have one guy to blame for, and he is Ryan Da. This person has also created the Node.js. So he has created this Deno JS that we are gonna talk about it, right? So Ryan has also the person who has created the Node.js back in 2009. Uh, he's created this Node.js and open up the world for the JavaScript. So what do I mean by that? Because yeah, as you all might know that JavaScript we just mean to run on the browsers, right? Like we use different browsers like Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and all these browser you run JavaScript code for what we call client-side applications, right, or the websites. So just to quickly show you. like what we can do in JavaScript, like if we just go to any browser and go to the console, and I can just like console.log, right? Right, same way we can do something, right? So all these are we can execute for the JavaScript, right? Directly in the browser. uh, So initially that was it. We were able to write JavaScript on the browsers, and then we had some different languages like we can say server-side languages like PHP or .NET or Python or any many more. So if we wanted to do something outside of the browser, then we can use these languages. But Randall has thought that wouldn't it be nice if we can use JavaScript outside of the browser as well, maybe even build the server or any desktop application or something like that. So that's why he has created this Node.js in 2009, right? So if we already have Node.js, then why did he create Deno? So this is the topic that we are going to explore more in this session, right? Because in order to truly understand Deno, we have to understand what are the differences are from the node, but also the reasoning behind why Ryan decided to create something that is really does something thing as a node, something more modern, right? So with that, let's just check out this image. So you can see here some words like Rust, TypeScript, and V8 engine, all that. So you see, this Deno is written in Rust, and it has a first-class TypeScript support, right? So you can write TypeScript out of the box with Deno, and which is created and supported by this Microsoft, right? And this Rust is heavily backed by this Mozilla, and is something we call and then it uses something called V8 engine, which Node does as well to actually read your JavaScript, right? So because as you know that we directly write some JavaScript in the browsers, and it executes. So each different browser has their own engine. So Node and Deno basically use Google Chrome's V8 engine to execute the JavaScript code outside of the browsers. Uh, So as you can see that Deno is built on this top of this really reliable technologies like Rust, TypeScript, V8 engine, right? But so how can we have all these technologies with Deno? So for that, first thing I want to talk about is V8 engine and how Deno is built on top of this engine, right? So So let's see this picture and try to understand what really V8 engine does. So the V8 engine is what understands the JavaScript, and it turns JavaScript code into what we call machine codes, that is ones and zeros, to give instruction to the computers, right? And at the end of the day, that's all the programming, right? We write our human readable computer language code, and that converts into the machine language, and that feeds into the computer, and it do the things that we want them to do. So we write in different programming languages, right? So and yeah, and people we have like this language is created by different authors and do the different things, right? And they build these different engines that translate our human readable programming languages into machine languages. So why do we need the V8 engine, right? So we need V8 engine because at the end of the day, Deno is essentially a shell. You can see that this, in the screen, that this green part. So Deno and the same way Node is essentially a kind of shell around this engine, so that we are able to write JavaScript codes, right? And this V8 engine takes that code and gives instruction to the machine. Now Node is also this same way, and this V8 engine is developed by Google V8 engine. It's really good, very performance, and it's just constantly being updated by Google. So they leverages this updating engine and want their stuff to uh, sorry, let me just have some water because my throat is hurting. Yeah. So as I said that this node and the Deno is a kind of shell around this Fiat engine, right? So it gets that JavaScript code and feeds into the this engine, and it then convert that program into machine readable code and feeds to the computer. So this way, this V8 engine is used to read our JavaScript code that we write in our node or Deno.js. So there might be things that outside of the JavaScript. For example, we can use a TypeScript that Deno compiles our TypeScript into the JavaScript and then feeds it into the JavaScript wait engine. We have to install Deno to be able to run our JavaScript. So that's why we can like call it a runtime, right? So let's further check the next screen, right? So as I said, like Deno has this inbuilt TypeScript support. So it we can write TypeScript code as well, and as well as the JavaScript as well. And what Deno does is it converts this TypeScript code into JavaScript, and then it feeds into the V8 engine. So that is inbuilt support in Deno.js, but in Node.js we can do that. But for that we have to install some of the packages and then do some npm install packages and all that stuff. But TypeScript is inbuilt support in our Deno.js. So let's quickly check how we can install this Deno.js in their documentation. So if we go to the installation part, right? So they have like a few different ways based on your operating system. You can install Deno.js. Like we have a Mac and Linux system, then you can just use this command. And the same way for Mac, we have these different options provided here. So I have already installed in my computer, right? So I will not go with that step. Now let's see after installation what we have in our I mean where exactly it installed. So let's check into the yeah. Okay, let me just show you directly in my computer. So whenever you just install this any of this command, right? Based on your system, it installed in your system. So I have here in Deno bin and this Deno file, right? So as you can see in my this path home Indianic Deno bin. So I have this one file for this installation, right? So in a way, there is not much things required, or they have built like just one executable file which is installed using this command. So that will be your running your all the Deno code. Right, so we have gone through this installation part. So now, okay, yeah. So anyone who has already worked or has been working on the node, they know that we can directly type in that command node, and you can go into the terminal, right, and just directly write your node code. The same way after installation Deno, we can simply write Deno And you can see that we have this REPL where I can just write any Dino code like this, right? I can even console like this, right? So this is like after installation we have this REPL where we can quickly write any Dino code. Let me just exit out it. Okay. So let's see just a simple program. I know it's a very simple program and it's not related to any kind of Deno, but still just to show you that how we can run particular file with Deno. So we have like we have this program under webinar, right? So I will just change it to webinar, and I have all these files here. So I will simply write Deno run and Deno1.js, right? So this is very simple program. I know it's there is nothing more than simple JavaScript, but just to show you how we can execute any Deno uh, file or any program, right? So this is just a simple program that we just need to try. Yeah. So now our next step is so our first Deno app. We have just write down our simple Deno app. So in Deno, we can check like conditionals or something like that. This is also we can execute simple way like Deno run Deno, right? So as you can see that here I have a fixed variable like I have defined food is equal to love, and it just check some condition and execute the program. But I can even pass the command line arguments from command terminal. So for that I have this particular function deno3.js, right? So let me just run it so I can show like how we can pass parameter from command prompt, right? So if I don't pass this, then it will not have any value, so it will just go into the else. And if I pass like love and neither, then it will fetch this parameter from command prompt and it will execute this that Deno is born, right? So this is just a very simple Deno program. So just to show how we can run a simple Deno program, right? Okay, so as you can see that here we have this Deno written over here. So with Deno, after installation Deno, we have this Deno namespace where we have bunch of different APIs provided by the documentation. We can quickly check that uh, if we go to the runtime API. Right, so you can see that all these Deno dot different APIs provided in Deno's documentation. So we can use those like reading a file or creating a directory and all that. Even we can create a servers and all that. So we have this namespace. So this Deno namespace is specifically built in a Rust language, right? And we have these other APIs also like A2B, B2A, then set interval, set timeout, this fetch API. All these are browser specific APIs which is directly available into this Deno. So in some of you might have know that in Node.js we don't have this window object. Like if I go into the console and if I just simply type in window, right? So we have this window object and it has all these different APIs available, like as we can see over here on the left side, right? This A to B, B to A, then clear interval, all these here are also available, A to B, B to A. But if we compare into the with a node, we don't have all this window object in node. So this is one of the feature that is added into the Deno.js, that we have this window object and this window objects browser compatibility APIs. So all these APIs are directly integrated or added into our Deno.js, which is a very cool idea, because we can directly then, in future, if there is any changes or any further amendment is there in JavaScript APIs, then we can directly use in Deno. But with Node, we cannot do that directly, right? So next, let's move on. Then we have next step is, yeah, this thing like Deno or Deno. So as it's spelled like Deno, but its pronunciation is Deno and not Deno, right? So there is the controversy going over that pronunciation of this project. But Ryan Dahl himself, in one of his conference, he said that how it should be pronunciation. So it should be like Dino and not Dano, right? So in future, whenever you just call it, you can call it as a Dino and not Dano, right? So let's check our let's check the internals and Dino's internal is architecture, right? So for that, let me go to the. So I have just explained about this process, right? How this works. Like a JavaScript file is feed into this Create engine, and then it converts it into the ones and zeros. That is machine readable, machine understandable code, and then it executes that program. So let's check how Deno's internal architecture and how it works, right? So now the the way Deno work is that if we write any TypeScript or a JavaScript file, that is .js or .ts file, it will compile it down to the JavaScript file, and then it feeds into the V8 engine. But if you write it will not run. Yeah, if you just write a JavaScript file, then it will not compile because it's already JavaScript file, so it directly feeds into the V8 engine. So whenever you type TS file, it converts to JavaScript and then pass. So it has this inbuilt TypeScript compiler, right? Then uh, so it's able to communicate with the machine and tell that machine what to do, that we as a programmer want it to do. Then uh, yeah, so whenever we start Deno, it create this process, like, because every on any computer, you if you open any application, then it start process, like you open browser or any of your application software, and it creates the process. So same way, when we start Deno, it creates this process, right? So Deno at the end of the day, creating it's a process of a computer, and any computer, when you run it, Deno is a process is started, right? So it's simply just a program that is in execution. When you uh, yeah, so just a minute. So whenever we start Deno, it started any process, like, so it starts in Google Chrome, has something that it has a V8 engine, but it also has this web API just like that in Deno, we have all these tools that we can use. So this is interesting part because Deno has as I'm showing you this screen, this Rusty V8 engine. So this Rusty V8 is a program written by Deno. Uh, as we said that Reno is written in Rust, right? So they have written this Rusty V8 engine that's communicate with Rust code with Deno. And so what Deno runtime is able to do is to use this Rusty V8 engine. So it says that anything that is outside of the JavaScript, like as I said, like it has a Deno namespace. So everything with a Deno dot namespace that is out of the JavaScript, right? So it is not a standard JavaScript, but it is space outside of the JavaScript. So it is written in that Rust language. So Ryan Dahl has created this Rusty V8 in Rust language, and then this specific code is communicated with Rust environment, and then it converts into the JavaScript, and then it feeds into this V8 engine. So that way it creates and Rust has many good features like it's very performant, very fast, and it has some security measures. So based on that security features, we get this Deno very secure program that is not accessible without any specific permissions that we will see further in this session. But that is how it provides a security, right? So now we actually take a look at let's take a look at now. Let's just go further and check this image, right? So we have like you have idea about this node system, right? Where you have this application which feeds into the JavaScript engine. Then you have some Node.js bindings, right? And the Node API. Then it has some libuv kind of asynchronous input output library written in C++. So whenever anything outside of the JavaScript, then in Node.js it is transferred to the libuv, and it has that event loop as well, which asynchronous code block. So once any any event occurs and it comes to the event loop, and once it is completed, it sends the response. So same way we have similar things in here in Deno as well. So it has this as you can see this image. In this image is kind of Eiffel Tower kind of thing. So it is a Tokyo library in Rust. So same way we have in libuv in Node.js. In Deno.js we have this Tokyo library which handles this event loop thing, right? So this is a little bit internal architecture of Deno JS, right? And a little bit comparison between this Node.js system. So it has almost everything, but it has main things like Rust, right? Rust, Tokyo library, and V8 engine. So V8 engine is similar in both, but in Rust is replaced for C and C++, in which libuv is written in Node.js, and this Tokyo library is basically used for event loop handling. So this is a little bit internal architecture of Deno.js, right? So let's move on to the next step. Right. So we have checked all these different Deno internals and architecture and all those points. So now the question is, what are the differences between Node and Node.js and Deno.js? So let's start with let's just first read all these points. So in short summary, you can see that Deno has this first class TypeScript support. It has ES modules. It has some security features. It has a decentralized modules. Then it has a standard libraries. Standard libraries with that I mean it has, you can see in the documentation side. This is the standard library, right? Then it has a built-in tooling, then browser compatible APIs, single executable. Single executable means, as I showed here, after installation, it has this single file, So this single executable file is required to run the Deno, right? Then it has async return promises, and the last one is opinionated modules, right? So let's check one by one them in details. So first one is first class TypeScript support. So the the first one is something we have already talked, like this type idea of a first class TypeScript support. That is, we can use TypeScript out of the box, whether we want to take advantage of strictly type language like TypeScript, or whether we just want to write in JavaScript. So we don't need to do any setup whatsoever if we want to use TypeScript. All we need to do is just use the .ts file, and you want to just use as a JavaScript, then you just use .js file. It's nice and easy, right? So we don't need to set up anything like in Node, where you need to install some npm package to get some TypeScript specific support. Then next we have these ES modules. ES module means ECMAScript module. So you see, when we first got the Deno in 2009, JavaScript didn't really have this module system. So think of module as a kind of different file. Like if I show you, so this is a simple file or simple code. So you can consider this file as a module as a. So module is a, you can be a simple file or a bunch of file as well. So right. So let's say you wanted to use some popular library in Bigcrypt, which allows you to hash password, allows us to store password of the user in the safe format. Now, if you want to use Bigcrypt, you want to go to the npm module, and maybe you search for the Bigcrypt like package, then you just install it using npm install, and then finally use it using the require syntax, which is common, right? In but that is not a standard JavaScript way, right? Require and the package name is not a standard way. So this is the non-standard way to include the different pieces of the code from third-party libraries, right? With ES6, JavaScript finally got these modules. So instead of using require, we can simply import or export the modules. So in standard library, it's a standard JavaScript way to doing these things. So Deno allows us to do that. So now Node also allows import and export, but in their latest release, but that is not out of the box, right? So they still have to support that require kind of syntax, where which is not very standard common JavaScript pattern. So let's just simply check one example of how we can import modules. So if I go to the documentation site, and they have some standard examples, and let's just use this welcome.ts file. So if I just copy this file, right, and I can simply do the import over here, right? So if I just run deno one, right? So as you can see that this is kind of example code on the Deno documentation site, and it has just simply console log, and as you can see, I just import it over here, and when I run this, it's simply consoling this output, right? So in is Deno is recognizes or import, but you may have noticed that I can just use the URL. We don't need to do anything npm install or anything, and we even don't have this any node modules kind of folder here. So we can directly import this kind of URLs if we want to use any third party modules, or even we have these standard libraries over here which is written by the Deno developers, or we can say Deno author, right? So we can directly import this kind of URL for any modules. So this kind of support is there in Deno, but in Node there is you have to do some npm install and stuff, right? So this is I think a very very nice feature. uh, so let's see what's next. Yeah, so third thing is security first. So in node, you might have idea that you whenever you use any third party package or any npm modules, then uh, there is no way, there is no any security issues, and most of the time get a warning or something like that, vulnerabilities in the packages and all that. So in Deno, we have security in mind, and as I said, like they are using this Rust language to provide this kind of security. So for that, if I just simply use this HTTP, and this, I will just have, yes. So instead of this URL, I will just change this, right? So if I run this command again, so you can see that whenever I just import this kind of URL in file, and I run this file, then it first downloads all these this specific file and its all its dependencies, right, like this, and then it executes. So one thing I want everyone to focus here is here it's showing me permission denied, right, and it says network access to this, and run this again with this. So this is one of the standard library providing this chat server, right? So with this chat server, we need to have some specific permissions. So it says that we need to run this with this particular flag. So if I just run deno run and dash dash allow dash net and flag. Oh, sorry. Lauren and Dino, right? So as you can see that this chat server is started, I have just simply imported. You can, if you use, then you can customize it as well. But I have just simply, just to show you the example, I just added this here, and now this server is starting. So it's directly added this particular link and imported this code here, and this server is started. So as you can see that we cannot directly execute any of the package or modules if it requires any specific kind of permission. So in this case we need a dash dash allow dash net kind of permission, so it requires network access. So this is one of the features which provided in a Deno.js. So that is about a security feature. And then we'll go to the decentralized module. So for decentralized module means in a node we have these npm packages which is hosted by the npm registry, and it is, I guess, maintained by the Microsoft. So we have these centralized modules stored in their centralized repository. But with Deno, you can host this kind of modules or files anywhere in the world, and you can just simply provide this kind of URL and use this to work with your project. So this is one of the feature that Deno is providing, which is decentralized modules. Then the standard library. So standard library means we have like the standard libraries which is provide some basic features like this date time, this encoding. Then you have kind of beat script or something, or http, right? So you have this all these standard libraries provided by the Deno, which you can use without fear or without any security issues, and they will be supported long term by the this Deno programmer. So there is not an issue. So that is also a very good feature where in Node we don't have this kind of standard libraries, but of course we have community written modules which we can use. But as I said, in Node there is no guarantee or there is no basic security provided for all those modules. But for Deno we have a specific security features in mind. So that is a very good idea again. So next thing is yeah, built-in tooling. So built-in tooling means uh, you know you see we have some professional node setup, and you have like you required to do typescript setup, some testing libraries, you need to format the code, or you need to check your files changes, and for that you use node mod, right? So in Deno we don't have to install many of these things separately. We have almost all these things built in Deno. Like if I show you tooling in where is it? Yes. So as you can see, we have all these different tools available inbuilt with Deno. Like we have bundler. So bundler is basically doing creating the bundle means if you have multiple files in your project, then you can bundle it to the single file and just push it to the production. Then you have this dependency inspector like Deno info. Let me just quickly show you what it is. So if I do Deno info and use these particular URL, right? So as you can see in this console, you have things like where it is locally stored. So as you can see this URL, right, it is in my home Indianic cache Deno deps. So this is the path where it's basically cached in my local system. So if I have already run this URL, so as you can see this is downloaded already first time. But whenever I run this again, then it will just load it from the cache. So you don't have to download it every time, it will use it from the cache. So that is also a good feature. Again, it says it's a TypeScript file. Then as it is TypeScript, so it has to be compiled in JavaScript file. So it is compiled, and it shows like dependency. It has 26 unique dependency, and its size also it shows. So and this whole tree kind of structure, it shows where and which file it is dependent, and all this is are loaded. So this is also one kind of tool where you can check that what are the different dependencies your project files have, right? Same way you can there is one more uh, tooling which is a Deno documentation generator. So you can provide doc blocks on your functions, and that will and using this command you can easily generate documentation. You can have this formatter as well. So do Deno fmt command. So normally Deno has this extension, official extension to format your code, right? So it is for the VS Code, but they have their dedicated this command as well, which you can run on single or multiple files to format your code, right? And then this Deno REPL is also available. Taste runner is also available. Then you can do this Deno lint over here, right? So all these tooling are also inbuilt provided with Deno, so you don't have to install anything separately, right? So this is also a great feature where in Node you have to install some different packages and all that, right? So next point is browser compatible API. So browser compatible API means in Node you might have idea like there is a one variable which is global, right? So if you ever want to use something, then you use that global, but that global object is not available in our browser, right? So console if I console.log global, right, and it says undefined, right? Same way, if I try to uh, do something, uh, yeah. So in Node, we don't even have that fetch API, which is a browser compatible. So all these browser specific APIs are built in Deno. So in Deno, we have this window object. If I just comment it out in this file, console.log window, right? Right. So you can see that we have that same window object and all these things inbuilt in Deno, right? So it is compatible with all the browser APIs. So we can directly use those if you are front-end developer. If you know all these APIs related to browser window object, then you can easily use that in the Deno. So that is a great feature as well in Deno as compared to Node. Then yeah, this is the single executable. So as I show you, like whenever we install Deno, we have this one executable file, that is Deno. So in based on the system, like in Windows you have that exe kind of file there to just run that Deno program. So in one of the article, one of the developer, yeah, I think this is the one. So this in this article it says Deno compile into executable. So it's, let's just read it and see what he's saying. That I was wondering if there is any plan to support compiling Deno script into single executable. And I saw single executable as a feature, but the code that follows seems to suggest it's Deno the single executable, not a program executable with it. It would be awesome to support something like Go build main.go. So this person is saying that creating, I mean, after compiling the Deno program, then if it is converting to the single executable file, like the one file this, right? So it will be a very easy and easy to publish or share with anyone else in the world, because now you don't need to install any dependency, you don't need to download anything, you just need to pass this kind of executable file. But right now there is no support with Deno. But as he's saying that some there is one language called Go, in which we have this kind of feature. So somewhere it is said, yeah, he's saying that this is still a long-term roadmap. But if you think that if it comes into Deno, then things will be really helpful and very easy. But right now we have this one executable file and our this code file. So if we have like 50 to 100 different our project files, then we can then bundle them up. But after all, we will have just one exe file and that one JavaScript file. But if they maybe Ryan or their team create this kind of feature, then it will be very helpful and very easy to publish this kind of projects to different people in the world. So that is a feature enhanceable thing for the Deno, and which is a very useful. Now the this part is async return promises. So async return promises means as I said, like this Deno is created in Rust, and Rust has let me show you one thing. Yeah, based on this. So this guy has asked that why did you choose Tokyo instead of libuv, right? So it says Tokyo is a Rust module and which works with a feature abstraction, and libuv is C and would necessitate building bridge to run futures. So this feature abstraction, and this is related to this Tokyo library and Rust module. So it simply says that by using this Rust language, Deno is always works with asynchronous and always return promises. but that is not the case in Node. So in Node, you have to promisify things and return the explicitly promises, or you may be using some npm packages for that as well. So that is out of the box. Deno is supporting this async written promises. Then the last, this is opinionated modules. So if you check in the documentation, they have there's some kind of style guide. Let me just quickly find. Yeah. So they have this style guide, right? Is providing them style guide to write how you can create your own library file or package, and for that they are providing different rules. So you can create some standardized library packages, which is again there is not in a Node.js. So in Node.js, anybody can write any kind of package anyway, and there is no standard to follow. So that is also a very great feature. So everybody can write the same. I mean the same, follow the same steps to create the different packages. Okay, so these are like Deno versus Node comparison kind of thing, and these things change the for the Deno developers. So there is this question, like you might be asking, like as this Deno has these many features, then how will it will kill the Node.js, or it will isolate or deprecate Node.js? So uh, the answer is like no, because the Node is a very very popular runtime, which is used by many different companies, many different developers. So many people are involved, and very big communities grown around this Node.js. So Node is not going anywhere, and the purpose of the Deno is also not like replacing Node, or removing Node from its place. But yeah, definitely in future, if like a community like Node is grown around the Deno, then more and more projects will be built in the Deno.js. So yeah, Deno is like alternative to Node.js, right? Then we already checked this single executable file feature. We have also some of the features like security related things. I will quickly show you. We have less time now, so I will just quickly go through it. So we have Deno. Says, yeah. So as I show you in one of the program, that I had to pass allow net, this kind of permission, right? So with Deno, if you want to have access environment variable, then you have to pass this flag. Then if you want to read any file or something, then that at that time you need to pass this allow read, and same way allow write. So we have like different permissions that we need to pass, as you can see here in the help command they are providing. And you can pass these allow all if your program is required multiple permissions, like environment variable, or high resolution time, or net, or like 2 3 or 5 or many other permissions, then you can just pass allow all. But there are different other ways also available, which you can use to uh, uh, use to run this command, like if you want to run the Deno program. So there are different task runners as well, like I'll just quickly show you, right? So here is a drag. So I have just one quick program over here. So if you want to don't want to write that different permissions from the command prompt, then you can create this kind of task runner. So in Deno, we have this drag file package, which you can write like this. And this is the task name, and this is I think asynchronous function, and you can execute your task over here. So I have this sh function, from where I can just pass like this, like Deno run, then this permission, I can pass multiple permissions, and then this file. So there are different ways you can handle all these kind of things in Deno and already built into the Deno. So I have many other things to cover as well, but right now the time is over almost. So just want to quickly ask anyone if you want to have any question, then we can discuss. Otherwise, we can conclude. We have all these other different things we could have discussed, like we have Deno modules and tooling, in which we could see that how modules work in Deno. Then it has a URL modules, standard library we have already seen. Then we have these third party modules as well, right? So it's in documentation side. We can see that they have, let's go back, right? So they have these third party modules, standard library is also available. So third party module, we can write our own modules and publish over here, right? And there are other ways around as well. As I said, it's just a simple URL like this. So you can host these kind of JavaScript modules, or your libraries or packages, and publish from anywhere. So that is also very good. Then there was one Deno caching kind of functionality as well, where as I just forgot to show you one thing, that yeah. So in the local cache directory, we have all these two folders where all these dependencies are stored. So later on, whenever you run your program, you don't have to download every time, and you can offline also work with your projects. And the same way you can we have like node modules folder in node projects. Same way we can create our own folder in our project directory, and we can download these packages in that directory as well, and directly publish them to run on any computer, right? So that is Deno caching, uh, npm for Deno. So there is no npm installer kind of things in Deno, so you can directly use URLs like this, right? And you can even cache all these URLs as well. Then the other thing is managing modules version. So module version, as you can see, that Deno modules is like these kind of URLs where you can provide this kind of versioning to the different libraries or packages. So you can provide this kind of version, and if you check on the documentation side, like if I use so like Express in Node, we have this Oak framework, which is a very popular, like Express in Node.js. So you can see that they have like these many different versions published. So if you want to use any specific version, you can just add that version number after like this, right? And if you want to always load the latest version, then you can just ignore this number and directly load like they have provided here. So you can simply load like this, o and slash mode.ts. If you want specific version, then you can append at the rate and version number. So there is no packet.json file in Deno. So we, as I said, that like we don't need to manage any packet.json file where you have lots of different dependencies you manage, and that node modules folder there to install all those dependencies files. So that is also removed from this, right? Then there is one feature that is you can say a dependency.ts file. Let me quickly show you in one of the project. So as we load all those different modules in packet.json file, in Deno we can create one dependency.ts file or JS file where we can load all our project dependency files, right? And then from this file you can import any of the package or module like this, right? So this is like our packet.json file if we compare to the node.js, right? So you can just install all these import different packages or modules from one file dependency.js or ts, and then you can use this dependency.ts file into your projects mode.ts file. And one more thing I just want to tell you that in node.js there is a thing that you there is an entry point for the index.js file, but there is nothing like that in Deno. You just by convention you can use mode.ts file, right? Yeah, and uh, for the feature like locking dependencies, so locking dependencies means we have this package.lock.json file in Node where we need to make sure that we our project should support and use in specific version. So we just log these dependencies in the Node.js. So in Deno.js as well, we have this feature to where we can create some log file, and where we can uh, load all our specific versions packages or modules, right? And as we have already seen this Deno tooling, that like bundling and formatter documentation and things like that. So as you can see that there are many different features and facilities provided in Deno.js, and as I said, it is developed and built by the same author, which is Ryan Dahl, who has created the node. And in one of his conference, he said that he has some regret about some 10 things in Node.js. So he has mentioned this thing and created this Deno.js, which is to overcome all those things. And we have covered in this session. So I think that is all for now. And I hope everyone get to know about this thing that in future we gonna work on the Deno.js, and the only success behind the Node or Deno is like the community, right? So the Node is right now is in top notch position because the community is built around this technology. So in future, if Deno has that kind of community, then it will also very grow quickly and will be a popular for all the developers and different companies if they start using it, right? So yeah, if anyone have any question, we can discuss quickly. Someone has asked that whenever we run programs, so every time all the files are downloaded. No. So first off, whenever we, as I showed you here, whenever we run program, it will download first, and it will simply load from these cache folders. So you can also override or specify the specific cache folder for your project. So like we have a node modules folder, you can have that particular folder. As I said, I have created this particular folder, deno underscore directory. So whenever I run that command or run my project, then it will load these cache folders here. So and if in any time, if you think that you have that particular package or library is updated, then you can pass reload parameter or option to explicitly tell to load or download all those packages again and use that fresh one.